Hey guys, it's Brian from XS MotorWorks and welcome back to my shop. So it's going to be episode number 7 of Project Mini Split Decision here, my hybrid Crosskart. So in episode number 6, you saw that we've got the Kawasaki motor running very nicely. Got the fuel tech right up there, and that's taking care of the application of controlling that motor. It's also going to be interfaced in with the electric motor as well. I've got some ideas on how the electric motor is going to function. This thing has a 16,000 RPM. The electric motor is only going to have like about 5,000. So we've got to kind of make it so that's going to cut on and off. So more to come on that. But anyway, this episode is really all about how am I going to get the power from that motor to the ground. So in episode number 5, we discussed the Honda CR-V diff. And now we've actually got to create some axles to connect that Honda CR-V diff to my Mazda Miata uprights. So the Miata has what you'd call probably more of a traditional CV joint here with all those little ball bearings. And it takes this spline. That guy right there. The CR-V actually functions with this little cup design with these, goes in here, and that's actually as the CR-V. It has 3 rollers that I got to put on this thing. So obviously what has to happen is this piece here was obviously much longer. This piece here, which is also much longer, now needs to be stuck together, welded upright. So to do that, I'm going to actually have to machine these things down, and then I'm going to put a collar in between there to make them nice and strong. So this guy right here. So this has to live in here. So anyway, let me go ahead and take care of that, and we'll get right back to you, and we'll get everything kind of connected, and let's see what it looks like. All right, so there you've got it. I've got this little half shaft, I guess it is, and here's my little half shaft. As you saw, I used a flappy wheel, actually a grinding wheel too, to get this roughed in. This little mini lathe, it only cuts like 10,000 in a single pass, so it would take me forever. So now this axle is basically the same diameter as this axle. I've already put the pin in this guy, and these two will get mated up like so. And if you look real close, we'll zoom in here for you. All right, so you can see, all right, let it zoom. Come on, autofocus guy. All right, well anyway, maybe I'll put it by my head, I'll focus. All right, so you can see this big gap, and that's actually in there by design. So I weld in around this gap and fill it up to the actual shaft itself, shaft height. And then I'll mill that off, but put the little collar on there. So again, I'm going to fill this in with weld, then make sure it's perfectly smooth, slide the collar all the way across, weld the collar to the actual shaft, and obviously then we'll have one Miata shaft to a Honda CR-V shaft. So let me go ahead and do that now. Well, sorry to say, I do not actually have any build footage of how I made the axles. I actually had some technical difficulties with my time-lapse camera. I've had technical difficulties before with my time-lapse camera, so Rashad was gracious enough to help me out, and now I've got this little GoPro, so hopefully in the future I won't actually have technical difficulties with time-lapsing. But here's the actual axle, one of them anyway. The other one's actually already in the cart. So here you have it. The Honda CR-V actually uses these rollers like this to create a motion for travel for the CV. Come on, get on there. Uses those 3, and this actually is more of like a Porsche style CV with a cup and ball bearings. So all I got to do is actually put that in here, and I'll give you guys a close-up of how this whole system is going to work. So let's kind of get to it. I went ahead and installed the axle. It's looking pretty damn good if I do say so myself. Let's take a little closer look at what we got going on. All right, so that is our Mazda Miata upright. That is the original CV joint from the Miata, and this is the original CV joint from the CR-V. So this is the axle I created, and that's the actual connection point. Behind here you can see that's the tow control. Unfortunately, That's where the brake used to live, right here. This is the caliper, but the caliper wouldn't have worked anyway. These tires are way too small. So then we come over here. There's the CR-V diff. And this is our limited slip differential block. See how that works here in a second. And then we've got our chain configuration. So originally, obviously this went from this little tooth here. This is 15 tooth. And the output was originally on a 46, I believe it was, or 45 tooth. This is actually a 35 tooth. And that's going to a 23 tooth. And then that goes down here to our big baby, which is a 46 tooth. Ultimately, that does give us a higher gear ratio, lower gear ratio, I guess, really, than the original motorcycle was set up for. And the reason for that is the bike was set up to do like 170 miles an hour, theoretically. I think it was a recorded top speed of 157. I don't want this kart to go that fast, so I just kind of geared it down a little bit. Theoretical top speed, the way it's geared right now, is a little over 100 miles an hour, which it'll probably be able to do, considering that we're going to have that electric motor live right about there, which is going to add quite a bit of power to this thing. So just to kind of talk about the power specs real quick. So this motor, in its natural form with the original ECU, made about 114, I believe it was, horsepower and about 50 foot-pounds of torque at 11,000 RPM. The electric motor is not going to be super huge on the horsepower, only going to give us another 11 horsepower, but it is going to give us a massive amount of torque right out the line. The motor is going to have 110 foot-pounds of torque. So in total, this little kart will have about, I guess it's about 160 foot-pounds of torque and about 130 horsepower, which is pretty substantial considering this thing isn't really going to weigh much. We will weigh it and tell you exactly how much it does weigh. I did actually start working on the exhaust, so at least it's no longer actually under the cart anymore and catching the wires on fire. It's at least going in the right direction. And let's see if there's anything else we should show you. Oh, you guys really have never seen the cockpit before, so let's take a look at that. So there's our fuel tech. As you can see, when the wheels lined up, you can see those are the shift gauges there. And there's our pedal configuration down below. So that looks pretty doggone good. We've got to put a heat shield here, otherwise we're going to melt the seat, because this is going to get really hot. So the seat lives really right against the back of this. So I need to put a heat shield right in there. And then the next thing that we've got to do is work on the brakes. So let's take a look at that. All right, so as I was saying, next up, got to install the brakes. Now that we know this thing will go, we need to be able to make it stop. I'm a little worried about that though. The brakes in the front are from the go-kart and they are tiny, not very big around at all. Probably going to have to upgrade those. The brakes in the back aren't much better. These are off a pit bike and these are literally the largest rotor I could fit in here. So that's going to live there. That's going to live there. But before I do that, you know what? There's one thing we got to check out. The LSD, because ultimately this needs to actually be protected. But I don't really know, I haven't been able to test. If you saw the LSD video, I couldn't turn this by hand. So I'm a little worried that that's a little too stiff. So let's give this a shot real quick. All right, jacked up. Okay, so we got both tires jacked up. That should still be able to spin because there's no key in it. All right, well, it spins. A little chunky, I don't get any bolts in there yet. But you can see basically both axles are together. So it is functioning as a limited slip right now, well, live axle, I guess, really. Let's see if I lower one, if we're still able to get this thing to actually spin with one tire. Or not. Okay, that's on the ground. All right, come on, baby. Ooh. Still spinning both tires. Hold on. Let's see how much force it's going to take. Let me get this thing strapped down. All right, so that's kind of mimicking a tire being locked. Let's see if it spins. Ha-ha! Look at that! So it's not bad. It's stiff, but it's doable. So I think I'm going to call that limited slip a success. And what that means is I also need to put a cup on here and fill this with grease so I can get this thing all buttoned up I'll probably go ahead. Originally, I wasn't going to seal that up until I did a test drive, but given the fact that this actually does work now, as you can see, it takes a little force, which is exactly what you want. I think it's going ahead and sealing this up makes sense. So, all right, I'm very excited about where we're at with this little guy. He is coming along fantastically. Can't believe it's almost done. Well, it's getting close to at least a milestone. Maybe not done isn't the right word, but we'll get these brakes installed in the next episode, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get this thing on the ground in the next episode too. Not 100% sure. So anyway, just want to take a quick second to say, hey, thanks for watching my videos. I really appreciate it. And for me and Dead Bob, we will catch you in the next one.